This material explores how reality reflects our internal frequency, the various parables, while issuing a dark warning against manipulating these metaphysical laws for selfish gain. And jumping right into the critique, the narrative structure currently dilutes its own impact by over-explaining the core metaphysical mechanics between every single parable.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, the overarching architecture is fascinating, but it just gets bogged down.
Right. Reading through these stories, the woman by the sea, the artist, the weaver, I actually felt this analogy forming in my head.
Oh, yeah? What was it?
Well, it feels a bit like watching a master magician perform a brilliant, mind-bending illusion, but then he immediately stops the show to, pull out a whiteboard and explain exactly how the trick works for 10 minutes.
Right, before he even moves to the next trick?
Exactly. You get this immense whiplash as a reader. Does this constant oscillation between narrative and heavy exposition disrupt the emotional momentum for you?
Oh, absolutely. And that highlights the core weakness here. The text falls into this highly repetitive rhythm.
Yeah, it really halts the pacing.
It does. We get this beautifully written, compelling character arc. Take the woman watching the waves, for example, or the artist noticing the dust particles in the light. But then the momentum just completely stops dead to deliver this dense wall of exposition.
Like a textbook.
Right, exactly.
Telling us over and over how the universe is a mirror, or how energy follows attention. Because the reader is already immersed in the concept, these constant explanations act as massive speed bumps. It stalls the pacing and actively weakens the impact of the stories themselves. It's intense handholding. If I'm reading a deep dive into frequency alignment, I probably already know that my thoughts influence reality.
Right, you don't need the basics constantly reiterated.
Exactly. I don't need the text to pause all the tension to remind me that the universe only knows resonance. If you show me the rabbit coming out of the hat, I'm amazed. Don't ruin the magic by drawing a diagram of the false bottom right after.
Yeah, the author has these incredibly strong narrative instincts, but they just don't seem to trust them.
That lack of trust is exactly it.
So the suggestion here is to streamline the exposition by trusting your parables to carry the thematic weight. Group those deeper philosophical explanations together rather than scattering them like toll booths equally between every single story.
Allow the stories to compound on one another.
Yes, exactly. So the reader feels the momentum building naturally.
So let's brainstorm some concrete examples of what that actually looks like on the page. Just a few ways to approach this out of all the possibilities. How do we build that momentum without the hand-holding?
Well, think about the woman by the sea and the artist above the bake. Right now, there's a huge block of heavy text separating.
Right.
What if you just rip that out and transition directly from her to him?
Oh, I love that. Relying entirely on the contrast?
It's a fantastic way to do it. The woman is sitting by the vast open ocean, but she's journaling her emptiness, right? Continually asking the universe, why do I feel so empty?
Broadcasting a command of lack.
Exactly, and the universe faithfully amplified. But if you cut instantly to the artist who is stuck in a tiny, cramped room above a bakery, but he suddenly experiences profound wonder just looking at dust particles in a sunbeam.
The reader feels that frequency shift in their own nervous system.
Yes, you contrast her stagnation directly with his breakthrough. You don't need a narrator to step in right then and explicitly define the law of attraction.
The sheer juxtaposition of her heavy, gray stagnation and his sudden, golden breakthrough does all the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly. You let the reader experience the metaphysical shift, which perfectly mirrors the text's own lesson, That reality is a felt bodily resonance, not a dry intellectual concept.
Right. It's brilliant. Are there other concrete ways to fix the speed bump issue?
Yeah, another option is to ruthlessly prune the aftermath of the later parable. After the stories of the merchant, the dancer, and the weaver, the text offers these repetitive variations of the universe is a mirror.
Yeah, I noticed those.
Remove them entirely. When the merchant's story concludes, don't re-explain the mirror concept for the fourth time. Pivot immediately to the next evolution of the idea, which is internal fragmentation.
Use the space to advance the philosophy, not to circle back to the baseline.
Exactly.
Okay, well, speaking of the philosophy itself, streamlining the pacing actually exposes a gap in the logic of what these parables are trying to convey.
Oh, definitely.
The crucial distinction between active alignment and passive surrender is introduced too late, and lacks a grounded anchor in the character's actions.
This is a major friction point in the manuscript. The weakness is that the material explicitly states that allowing is not passivity. It literally calls allowing an active, engaged state.
Right, like a river carving a canyon.
Exactly. But when we look at the characters meant to represent this state, the dancer and the weaver, they primarily showcase just, well, stopping. The dancer stops drying. The weaver lets go of control.
It creates massive dissonance. I'm reading this trying to figure out how to practically apply these concepts to my own ambitions, and the implicit lesson seems to be just sit there, drop your tools, and wait for the universe to do the work.
Yeah, it completely lacks a bridge between internal surrender and external aligned action.
It actually contradicts its own brilliant metaphor. Later on, like you said, the text compares allowing to a river carving a canyon.
Right.
But water carving stone is incredibly forceful. It's heavy, it's moving tons of sediment, it is undeniably working. If the dancer's solution is simply to breathe in an empty studio, and the weaver's solution is just dropping her tapestry, they aren't rivers.
They're puddles.
They are absolutely puddles. We need to see them moving sediment.
Yes, so the suggestion is to fortify the concept of active allowing by showing what aligned action actually looks like after that moment of surrender. Demonstrate that the characters still have to do the physical work, but they're doing it from a completely different energetic baseline.
Let's give some concrete examples of how to build that bridge. Just a few options the author could play with.
Sure. Take the dancer. After he surrenders his anxiety in that empty studio, don't just end the scene with him breathing deeply.
Right, that's too passive.
Briefly describe him actively choreographing a new routine. Show him sweating, physically exerting himself, spinning across the floor, but note how the physical effort feels totally effortless compared to his previous state of panic.
Oh, I love that. Show him driven by the gravity of joy instead of the exhausting friction of his own ego.
Exactly. And for the weaver, don't leave her sitting there with her hands in your lap. Describe her physically returning to the loom.
Right, show that she's still weaving.
Still selecting threads, still working intensely with her hands, but doing so with curiosity rather than this white-knuckled, desperate grip.
Let's take that a step further with the weaver, because there is an incredible section later in the manuscript about how words are architectural plans.
Oh, right. I remember that part.
The weaver used to mutter things like clumsy and worthless with every dropped thread. What if the aligned action we see her taking isn't just physical? What if we see her actively rewriting that internal command while she works the loom?
Oh, that bridges the gap perfectly. It shows that surrender isn't about walking away from your craft. It's about changing the frequency of the tools you are holding.
Exactly. And you could also expand the river metaphor itself right in the text to clarify this.
How so?
Well, explicitly note that the water must still physically push against the rocks to carve the canyon. The alignment just means it doesn't try to flow up the mountain.
That is a great distinction, because if you only show these characters stopping, you leave the audience with a really dangerous misconception.
We definitely want to see the artist picking up the brush with that new, lighter energy.
Right. Now, if the weaver dropping her threads leaves us wondering what healthy action looks like, the merchant shows us the exact opposite.
Yes. What happens when action is driven by toxic obsession?
The setup for the merchant is phenomenal. We have this ancient trader who learns the laws of attention and emotion, but instead of using them to align with the universe, he uses them to strategically exploit vulnerabilities and extract wealth.
It's such a great hook. But the central hook of the piece, the dark warning against misuse, promises catastrophic stakes but delivers consequences that feel overly abstract and safe-turnal.
Oh, absolutely. The title literally says this is the universe's warning to you, which implies real danger. But the weakness is that the payoff doesn't match the promise. The consequences for the merchant are just that his sleep becomes restless, he feels nothing, and his relationships become transactional.
It feels completely toothless compared to the ominous framing. Now, the text goes out of its way to clarify that the universe doesn't punish us. It operates on physics, not morality.
Right.
Which philosophically makes total sense. A lightning bolt isn't going to strike the merchant down from the heavens.
Right, which makes sense philosophically, but narratively, it's boring. Telling the reader he lost inner coherence or experienced internal dissonance doesn't evoke any actual dread.
It tells rather than shows the destruction.
Exactly. It keeps the danger locked safely inside his head. It leaves the warning feeling entirely abstract.
So the suggestion here is to ground those internal consequences in visceral, observable reality.
Make it tangible.
Yes. If the core premise of the entire piece is that our internal frequency creates our physical reality, then internal fragmentation must inevitably create physical collapse.
That makes perfect sense.
Show how that internal rot bleeds into external ruin. Give the physics of consciousness tangible, devastating outcomes that the reader can vividly picture.
Let's build out some concrete examples for this, just to show how it could look. You could show a specific, highly paranoid interaction.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Imagine putting the merchant at a massive, lavish banquet. He paid for it. He's surrounded by his supposed allies. He's eating the finest food, but describe his hands physically trembling.
Why is he trembling? Because he suddenly realizes every single person at that table is just reflecting his own manipulative frequency back at him.
Exactly. He successfully manifested a room full of powerful people, but because his intention was extraction, he is now sitting in a room full of extractors. He's the richest man at the table, and he's the prey.
That is absolutely terrifying. That delivers on the promise of a dark warning. It takes the abstract concept of dissonance and puts flesh and bone on it.
Right. Are there other ways to show it physically?
You could also describe the physical toll of this internal dissonance. Does he age prematurely? Do the gold coins he spent his life seeking actually feel cold or unbearably heavy in his hands?
Oh, that's visceral. The text mentions earlier that intention is the hand that holds the hammer of creation. If he's using that hammer solely to extract from others, show us the splintering of the handle in his own hands.
Ooh, nice callback to the text.
Instead of just stating that his empire required constant vigilance, show a fleeting moment where his entire trading route nearly collapses.
Yes, let us see the sand slipping out from beneath the foundation of his empire. Show us that structures built on fear and extraction literally crumble in the physical world. It proves to the reader that this isn't just philosophical entertainment.
It's operational.
Exactly. It has real physical gravity.
And it circles back to the core thesis of the whole text. There is no private creation. What you poison in yourself, you poison in the shared field.
Right. The merchant didn't just ruin his own sleep, he contributed to a collective architecture of paranoia.
Making his external world crack under the weight of his internal fragmentation makes the ultimate call to action at the end of the text so much more potent.
Oh, definitely. When the reader is finally asked to place their hand on their chest and ask, "What do I want to create?" they will actually remember that visceral image of the merchant trembling at the banquet.
They will remember the artist painting a new reality just by noticing the light.
They will remember the weaver actively selecting a new thread. The imagery anchors the philosophy.
So to quickly recap this critique, your material establishes a beautiful, resonant atmosphere, but can be significantly strengthened by adjusting a few key structural elements.
Yeah.
First, streamline the pacing by grouping the philosophical exposition together rather than interrupting the parables like a speed bump. Let the juxtaposition of the characters do the heavy lifting.
Second, bridge that gap between passivity and active allowing. Show your characters taking aligned physical action after their moments of surrender, like the dancer sweating through a new routine, driven by joy rather than panic.
And finally, give the warning real teeth by showing the visceral, external realities of the merchant's internal fragmentation. Let us actually see the empire of extraction physically crumble.
You have a phenomenal foundation here, and we highly encourage you to apply these lenses, revise the piece, and submit it back to us for another critique. We'd really love to see where you take it next.
Because ultimately, stepping into this work isn't just about gazing into the mirror to see what reflects back at you. It's about realizing that with every act of choice, with every engaged movement and every grounded intention, you are the one polishing the glass.